Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Kat, I'm with Jericho Writers, and I'm thrilled today to be joined by writer and self-publishing expert Debbie Young. Really excited to have you here, Debbie. Thank you so much for hopping on this call with me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Kat. It's really nice to have the chance to chat to you and to everybody who is tuning in for it.
Yeah, so as I said briefly just then, Debbie is a writer, but also a self-publishing expert in her own right. If you do have any questions or if you're curious about self-publishing at all, do pop a question into the comments for her, and we'll do our best to get those answered for you. This is really, I think, a fantastic opportunity to kind of learn more about the world of self-publishing, as it's something I think a lot of writers maybe don't know that much about until they're kind of in the depths of it, really. And I think a lot of people just kind of, I guess, think traditional publishing is the only way to go for a writer, and I think that's definitely not the case anymore. So I'm really excited to kind of get into that with you and just explore that a little bit more. So yeah, thank you again. So for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with Debbie's work, I'll just give you a bit of a brief introduction to her. So Debbie is the author of 10 novels, 2 of which have been shortlisted for the prestigious Book Brunch Selfies Award for Best Independently Published Adult Fiction in the UK. She's a frequent speaker at literature festivals, writing events, and also judges many writing competitions. And she also founded the groundbreaking Hawkesbury upon Literature Festival, which showcases dozens of self-published authors every year, which is a truly fantastic event. If you've never been before, do mark it out on the calendar. I know you've also just recently signed a new 13-book contract with the multiple award-winning publishing house Boldwood Books, which is fantastic. Congratulations. And that's something it would also be lovely to get on, like, talk about with you today. Obviously, you published the majority of your books previously through the self-publishing, through the indie route, and now you've chosen to now sign a contract with a traditional publishing house, but you're still going to continue to self-publish. So it'd be great to kind of hear a little bit more about that. So thank you, and welcome everyone. If you're just joining us, if you have any questions for Debbie, do pop them into the chat. If you're curious about self-publishing or whether it's the right course or path for you, do let us know, and we'll do our best to kind of help you make that decision. So Debbie, could you tell us a little bit about how the world of self-publishing has changed since you first started out? I imagine it's quite different these days.
Yeah, it in lots of ways it gets more empowering and more exciting all the time. And looking back, I'm quite amazed at just how much it has changed. There are lots of new tools that you can use now that have just become available in the last couple of years. So, for example, formatting tools such as Vellum, developed a few years ago for Mac users to format their own books very easily. Atticus is a newcomer which enables PC users to format their books very easily. There's more distribution services. In the early days, ebooks were really only available from Kindle, as in Kindle format, when Amazon invented the Kindle. And of course, there are so many other ebook reading platforms and devices and apps that you can use. So that's really transformed ebook publishing enormously. Surrounding self-publishing, there are all the different marketing tools that have changed as well. Social media platforms in particular, obviously they're not just for self-publishers, but for everybody, they've changed so much. There are new social media platforms coming on stream all the time. TikTok will be the most recent big entrant to the market. Instagram. When I first started self-publishing, I was Facebook and Twitter. I've now embraced Instagram, or haven't quite got my head around TikTok yet. The thing is, though, as a self-publisher, you don't need to embrace all of those things. I'll get to TikTok eventually. As it's become easier to self-publish and easier to reach people at the touch of a button, to reach readers all over the world, more people have done it, of course, because it is becoming increasingly easy, which means there's more competition out there. At the same time, some of the very early adopters who perhaps weren't very successful because they hadn't written very good books or presented them very well, they've fallen away. And there'll always be a certain amount of churn going on. But perhaps the biggest change is the stigma of being self-published has fallen away. You know, when I first started out, people were quite almost apologetic about explaining that their book was self-published. Now it's something to be proud of. There's so many self-published books out there that are just as good as trade published books in every sense, in terms of production and writing and the innovation. And there are huge success stories now, such as L.J. Ross, Rachel McLean, leading the field and really setting a great example and being inspirational role models. So it's all exciting, but it changes all the time. So it's really important to keep up with those changes so that you can make the most of your own opportunities. You have to be constantly learning. You know, a year is a long time in self-publishing. You know, so much.
I guess it's kind of, you know, mirrors the rest of the kind of like, you know, tech revolution in that respect. It's hard to kind of keep on top of like all the latest developments, which is really exciting in a way. But what are some things or some kind of resources that help you to kind of stay on top of all the like latest developments and things that you need to know?
Well, the thing is that there's a lot of information online, but there's also a lot of misinformation. Who you listen to. So there are certain gurus out there who I would always listen to: Joanna Penn, David Gochran. The Alliance of Independent Authors has a fantastic blog, which has a new entry practically every day, which is the selfpublishingadviceblog.com. So they also have a lot of publications, and if you join as a member, you also get access to their Facebook group, where you've got people online all the time, world over, who will answer questions. So networking with fellow authors, following what the best self-published authors do as well, is really helpful.
I mean, I just have to say, you know, it really is a fantastic organisation, the Alliance of Independent Authors. I know you're very kind of heavily involved in the work that they do. So if you are interested in self-publishing, it's a great resource to go and check out for sure. And I'll post a link to them in the comments following our chat. But yeah, I guess what I'm kind of also curious about is I think for some people it feels like quite a daunting task going into self-publishing, because in the traditional route, you hand your manuscript over to a publishing house, and then they kind of, you know, take care of the rest. They, you know, do get, you know, will hire an editor, and they'll, you know, get the marketing all set up and that kind of thing. It's really in their hands. And I guess at that point you have less control, don't you? And, you know, for some people that might be a good thing, but for other people that might not be as great a thing. Whereas in self-publishing, you really do have all the control. And I think, you know, you can really kind of orchestrate your success a bit more because the power is in your hands. But for some people, that's quite daunting. So what would you say to those people who are a bit tentative about, you know, taking those steps and going into self-publishing?
You're spot on there, Kat, because you have the comfort of being sort of under the wing of a bigger organisation when you're with a trade publisher, but you are just on the edge of the process, and you're just the content producer, and then there's department upon department that goes off and does everything else for you, marketing, formatting, design, all the rest of it. But when you're self-publishing, then you have creative control, so you can call the shots, so you won't end up with, and this might be your motivation for taking the self-published route, is that you can call the shots. You decide what to write. You decide what to call your book. You decide on the cover. You choose the partners that you work with, the editors, proofreaders, cover designers, and so forth. So you have an enormous amount of control. So a lot of people think, oh God, self-publishing, I can't do it all myself. And it is scary to think, the buck stops with you. You have all the responsibilities that a whole publishing house would have, all rest with you. So the way to get around that is to build your team, find freelance professionals who will work with you. So you kind of become their HR manager as well, but then you build up this very, very comforting support network. So as a self-publisher, I've had a lovely cover designer, Rachel Lawston. I've had Alison Jack as my editor, and we've been this little sort of triumvirate, supported each other. And also I've got lots of friends with self-publishing authors, so that all helps drive you forward and keeps you motivated and keeps you on your toes. You have to learn a lot, and you have to, as we've said, keep abreast of all the changes, but it's doable, and it's never been easier. And I think self-publishing is so empowering that I say hand on heart, there's never been a better time to be an author. You can get your books out there. If you stick only to the trade route, you really reduce your chances of getting your book published, particularly if your book is perhaps not a mainstream big commercial category, and if perhaps you're not a big TV celebrity as well, that publishing is an ordinary person, and you have to, who dares wins. The only way you can fail with self-publishing is if you stop trying, and if you don't quite venture it, and what have you got to lose? It's so exciting to be able to do it.
That's so true. I think one of the things that most shocked me when I was learning more about self-publishing was kind of the stats and figures around it, around earnings, for example, authors' earnings, that going down the traditional route, authors will only take away 10% of the earnings of their book. Whereas if you go down the self-publishing route, authors, can take away 60 to 70%, which is, depending on obviously, the other costs that you've incurred, if you do hire freelancers. But I think it's so kind of empowering, like you said, to be able to kind of have that control. And I know a lot of writers are very successful self-publishing and do make a lot more money than authors who are quite big names in traditional publishing world, but they're not making anywhere near as much money, which is fascinating to me.
Yes, and I know plenty of self-published authors who have been offered trade contracts but turned them down because they're comfortable with their marketing and their writing and everything, and they think, well, they couldn't do anything for me that I'm not already doing for myself. So it's by no means any longer like the holy grail for a writer to get a trade publishing contract. A lot of people are seeing the self-publishing route as a very worthwhile alternative. And it's not only about the money, it's about writing and publishing and getting out in front of readers the book that is in your heart to write.
Exactly. And I agree. I think the more stories you can get out into the world, and the more experiences that can be shared, the better, really. And the self-publishing is really enabling people to be able to do that, which is truly fantastic. Hi everyone! If you've just joined us, I'm here chatting with writer Debbie Young. If you do have any questions for Debbie about self-publishing or even just about writing in general, do drop them into the comments. We'll do our best to answer them for you. But I guess that kind of brings me on to the next question I have. So. Excitingly, you just signed a major book deal with a fantastic publishing house, Boldwood Books. So what was kind of your motivation for doing so, having self-published so successfully for so many years? And you said you will still continue to self-publish as well. So
having said all that I've just said, people might be thinking, well, what on earth did she get? But it was something that I wasn't seeking out. They came to me because they'd seen that I've been successful with my writing myself, and I'm writing in a commercial genre that they were building their list for, cozy mystery. So I'm sort of one of the starting points for their cozy mystery list. And so the 13 books is reissuing 9 novels that I've already written in 2 different series, and then a contract for 2 new books a year, 1 in each series for the next 2 years. And I was ready to move on to something else. I've done lots of marketing with those books, and I'm quite happy to pass them on to somebody else to repackage and market and hit the market again with those. And as we were just saying, as a self-publisher, you are the publishing house with your trusty team of professionals, and I wanted to offload the responsibility for marketing and developing those series to somebody else so that I could get on with writing new books in those series and also exploring other books to write as well. Last year, on a whim, I wrote a romantic comedy novella, so complete departure from what I've been writing already. And my agent got very excited about that and said that he thinks I ought to be writing more novels in that genre as well. So that's something else that may or may not be of interest to Boldwood, and they have first refusal. But if not, it's I feel like I've got the best of both worlds, because I can self-publish it, or I could pitch it to another trade publisher, and so I've got lots of flexibility. I wouldn't have signed with just any trade publishing house, because I know lots of people who have had bad experiences or disappointing experiences, and also there are a lot of small publishing houses that sort of come and go quite quickly, and also the very giant ones who would not appeal to me as much. I like the small dynamic approach of small size and dynamic approach of this Boldwood books, who really punch above their weight. And I like their people, and I like their propositions, and I've seen what they've done for other indie authors who've taken a similar route, and their contract was something I would have regretted refusing. So I didn't want to sort of take one for the team and say, oh no, I'm only self-publishing. And I've been really delighted with how enjoyable it's been to work with them. And so I feel like I've now got this whole new team of supporters and professionals supporting and helping me. So that's so far so good. It's a good experience so far. So that, but I'm doing what's right for me. I know other indie authors who, if offered a similar deal, would have said, oh no, I can't let somebody else take control of my covers and my titles. They're going to change the titles and the covers on my book. Now, changing covers every couple of years happens all the time in trade publishing.
Right.
And I'm really pleased with the new covers that they're coming up with, and the titles are very interesting. They've made them, they've freshened them up. So and I think it's having a fresh pair of eyes on two series that I've lived with for a long time is important for me.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and it's also kind of, I guess, eye-opening to a lot of people that I think, again, also people sometimes have the presumptions that if you go down one route, you're kind of stuck in that route. You can't then, change your mind or, explore opportunities in a different way. You think, they think they have to go down the trade route or the self-publishing route, and then that's it. And there's proof that there is that flexibility nowadays, and it's perfectly doable to be able to explore self-publishing and the traditional route as well. So it's thrilling.
And it's really a two-way street, because I'm going self-published to trad publishing while still being self-publishing, but there are lots of people now who are going from traditional publishing to self-publishing because their publishing house has delisted some of their older books which are perhaps not selling so well, or they've changed their own emphasis, because the trade publishers are very focused on lists, on the relevance of their list and their target audience. They're laser focused generally, and so if they've decided that certain books are no longer relevant to their list, then they might stop publishing them, in which case the author can get their rights back and then do what they like with them. They can self-publish them, and many authors are doing far better financially when they reissue them as self-published books because of the difference in the rates, as you mentioned, and they realize that actually it's all good.
Which is, again, it's fantastic. It's nice that there's more control now for authors. They're not just kind of at the whims of these big publishing houses. They can have more kind of agency over what direction they choose to go in. And we've actually had a question from Jane Dalton. I'll just pop it up on the screen. She said, "Hi Debbie, for someone who has no experience of or knowledge of self-publishing, where would you suggest beginning, and what's the best way to reach the highest number of readers?"
Okay, hello Jane, thank you for a very good question. For somebody who has no knowledge or experience, I would suggest a good starting point is to read lots of books and lots of blog posts. I particularly recommend the Alliance of Independent Authors series of guidebooks, which you can download for free if you're a member, or you can buy them. There's one particular one which quite recently been published by Orna Ross, written by Orna Ross, the founder of Ally, which is an overview of all of self-publishing, and that's very good. Following people like Joanna Penn, David Gochran, as well as the Ally blog, they're really useful. They're up to the minute, they're very trustworthy. Joanna Penn is quite futuristic, always ahead of the game with tech developments and so forth. David Gochran's got a huge amount of experience and is a good bloke, decent bloke who shares things generously. So follow some of those, and look for books and blog posts that to do with particular topics that interest you and develop your knowledge a little bit at a time. It will take a while, and there are different processes to do. It's not just a question of how to publish it, it's how to market it when it's out there, it's how to make sure that your book is publishing ready to start with. Too many people, because it is quick and easy to publish a book when you know how, they rush into it and push that publish button when really they should have spent more time writing and editing and refining their book. The best way to reach the highest number of readers, well, that depends on your book, your genre, your target readers. There are lots and lots of different marketing techniques, from content marketing to paid advertising, social media sharing. You need to have a great website, so you've got a good author platform. That's the most important thing. But if you are a beginner, if it's your first book, then I absolutely always say the best thing to do is to write another book. So because it's going to be much easier to market 2 or 3 books than a single book. And also concentrate on perfecting your writing. Read widely, read lots of books, not just self-published books, just read all books in your genre, outside of your genre. The more you read, the better writer you'll become, and ultimately success is to do with initially having a good product starting point. Because no matter how well you market a book and how well you self-publish it, how well you do the cover and all that sort of thing, ultimately you want the product to be good. And Jericho Writers has lots of writing courses, obviously, and perfect your writing first and build up a catalogue of books.
I think that's one of the interesting, I guess, distinctions between traditional self-publishing is I think a lot of writers who have found success through the self-publishing route often do go on to publish series of books, because that's what helps, to draw people into them and, to keep them going. So do you find there are some genres that are more suited to self-publishing and some genres where they would fit better a traditional route?
I think any genre is suitable. Oh, sorry, I've just realised I should have said also what you need to do with your website is to build up a newsletter, build up a mailing list of readers. So you've got to build your own fan base who by having a newsletter and a mailing list. Any genre is suitable really, but you will be more successful if it's a commercial genre that there is a proven market for. It's slightly more complicated, more challenging to, I think, to self-publish and market children's books and young adult books, because you're not allowed to market to under 18s. You market to their parents. So that makes that challenging, but there are huge success stories. Karen Inglis, for example, hugely successful middle grade children's author, bestseller both sides of the Atlantic. It's also, so it can be done with those genres as well. What books that aren't particularly suited to self-publishing, I would say it's not really genres so much as types of book. If you want a book that won't respond well to print-on-demand printing, to digital printing, so a book with lots of fancy effects, lift the flap, or with lots of colour plates and that sort of thing, you just can't do that with print-on-demand printing, which is the kind of printing that is predominantly used in self-publishing, which makes it affordable for and economically viable for indie authors to produce print books. So that those are more challenging. But really, if you have a book that you really want to write and it doesn't fit into any of the genres, you can still self-publish it. And if it's in your heart to do it and you really want to do it and it's going to make you happy, just do it. You know, I mean, there are more kinds of success than commercial success. If you have a project that you want to leave for your grandchildren, or a social history project for your village that you want to leave for posterity, then self-publishing is a great way to bring those out into the public domain. Projects that a trade publisher would never touch. So self-publishing is very empowering of minority interest projects, charity projects as well. I've also, I didn't mention, I've also self-published a book about type 1 diabetes. I think possibly the first book I self-published, which was because my husband and daughter have diabetes, and I wanted to raise awareness and funds for the charity that supports type 1 diabetes, and that would never have got a commercial publisher, but I could self-publish it, and it trickles away sales still, almost 10 years on, I think.
Wow, fantastic. I mean, yeah, again, it's so important, to be able to help distribute, those experiences and that information, and, help other people who might be going through the same kind of thing. So I think that's really wonderful. So yeah, like you said, just don't be discouraged if you've got that story to tell, and it's really, just kind of pushing away inside of you. You can get it out there. You don't have to just rely on, your book to be picked up anymore, which is fantastic.
Memoirs too. People can write their memoirs that may not be of interest to anyone other than their family. But what a fantastic way to use self-publishing. I helped a neighbour of my dad's publish the memoirs, who's a man in his 90s who was terminally ill, and I helped him self-publish his memoirs so that they could be distributed to his family, and then they ordered reprints to issue at his funeral after. So, it's just wonderful. I mean, that's fantastic. You could never do that another way. That was what to be able to do. What a wonderful thing to do, to be able to just be able to get that story finally out there, and just offer that to his family as well. That's so lovely. We've had a couple of questions come in. So Jason Small said, procrastination. Do you ever suffer with it, and how do you deal with it? Jason, great question. I think yes, I do. I have to stop myself visiting Facebook again. Or doing some kind of admin or marketing or something. But I've got quite a radical way of avoiding that kind of thing, is that I'm very, very lucky. During lockdown, my husband built me a little shed at the bottom of the garden, so I can go sit down. If I go down there, I can't get distracted by the internet or anything like that. And I think just turning away from all those distractions is good. And I think what I find really helps me, and I'm probably a bit unusual in this, is that I like to start, once I've got a title for a book, then I can get going, and it makes it real. Getting a cover before you finished, when you know what the title's going to be, but you haven't finished writing it, getting the cover and is helpful, because it makes it seem real, and you think, I really have got to get this book written. And also you can be publicly accountable by sharing with your followers and your fans on your website or on your Facebook page or wherever what your progress is, and then that embarrasses you into crack on.
They hold you to task. Oh, that's wonderful. And I guess that's another, quite important element of self-publishing. I think, the arrival of social media, I think, has also really helped, writers to kind of boost, the amount of people they can get their work out to, which is fantastic.
And to network with other authors as well, because you can buddy up with others and share your writing goals each day and that sort of thing. So that works for some people.
It's such a lovely idea. And we've had another question. What's the difference between a scene and a chapter?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I tend to write very short chapters, which are basically a scene. I don't often have a scene change in the middle of a chapter. And I guess the way to you can make your chapters whatever you like. I mean, there are some books that which annoy me, frankly, when they only have like 3 chapters in a novel. I think you end a chapter when it feels like you want to just sort of sit back and digest something, or the reader wants to sit back and digest it and take a breather. I think it's also courteous to the readers to keep your chapters at a reasonable length for anyone who's thinking, oh, I'll just read a chapter before I go to bed. You know, you don't want to have them staying up half the night to finish a chapter. And so I don't think you can have a chapter that is less than a whole scene. You can have multiple scenes in a chapter. So whatever feels right, I go by gut feel, really. What feels comfortable to you? Think of it in terms of visuals and films. You know, what would you write in a scene? Would there be a physical scene change if the story is moving on?
That's wonderful advice. Yeah, I've never really kind of thought of it that way, but I think that makes perfect sense, really, to kind of picture it as in, because you know, you are taking the reader through that story, and they're, you know, kind of experiencing, obviously it's a completely different format, but like experiencing that way they are in a journey, like they would be like watching a film or television.
That's, you know, it's a little film going on in their head, really, isn't it? You know what they say about books, the pictures are better than films.
Yeah, so true. So you're obviously also our tutor on our Simply Self-Published course, which we are really thrilled to have you do that for us. So thank you so much for that. And so I'm just curious a bit about, you know, what the course is about, why you think you know, it might be useful for writers to join, and what kind of things people can expect if they do choose to sign up for the course.
Yeah, well, it's a very practical course. It's a very logical course, and it takes you through the sequence of the self-publishing process, from making sure your book is ready to publish, that it's in a fit state to publish. So we talk a little bit about editing, just a tiny bit about editing, and different ways of editing, to make sure that your book's ready to publish. Then we talk about the different processes, how it works, how you upload things to the different platforms, and publish ebooks. We focus on ebooks and paperbacks because that's the classic sort of entry point for self-published authors. And so we talk about how you create the interiors and the covers and engage cover designers, how you work with choose editors, choose cover designers, choose proofreaders, and so forth. There are 2 modules about marketing, which include setting up a website, choosing a social media, and marketing strategies and facilities available. And then the last module is about what to do next. And so then we talk about other formats that you might market, that you might publish in, audio, hardback, that sort of thing. And we talk about licensing rights, and considering trade deals, and working with other partners. So it's very practical. It's quite hard work. It's quite intensive. 10 weeks with a Zoom session every week, of about, it's meant to be an hour, but we usually end up talking for an hour and a half or so. With 3 homework that you have to do. The course runs on a Tuesday. You have to submit the homework by the Sunday. I will then mark it on the Monday, so you get a personal response to each piece of homework. So it's very personal, and it takes you through everything you need to know quite fast. It's like quite a fast track. By the end of it, you'll know how to self-publish, how to market, and there will still be plenty to learn because there are always more changes going on, as we said. But it tells you all you need to know, really, providing you've got a good book as a starting point. So it's aimed at people who've got that book ready to go and they want to go with it.
Yeah, fantastic. So it's kind of, you have to kind of have that finished product, I think, nearly finished product, because it's going to literally help you to get that product then to become, you know, published through the indie platform. So
if you're still at the writing stage and you're still puzzling about plots and structure and dialogue and that sort of thing, then you'd probably be better off investing in Debbie Alper's self-editing course, or in the novel writing course, or whatever, which you've already done, and working on the writing until you're confident that you've got a saleable product, and then go for the self-publishing course.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Debbie. That's wonderful. Do we have time just to sneak one more question in from the audience? So we've just got one more about marketing, which I think is something that a lot of writers find really fascinating, because if you don't have that marketing background, again, it's something that can be quite intimidating to kind of go into for the first time. So how much marketing do you actually do on your own?
Well, in a way, you could say I do all of it on my own and that I don't employ anyone to do marketing for me. But I have used marketing organisations such as BookBub, which is a newsletter subscription service whereby they send out adverts for your books to all of their thousands of subscribers around the world who have expressed an interest in your genre. But that's down to me to pitch for the BookBub deal, to choose which books, to and to organise all of that, and to make my own marketing plan. There are lots and lots of different ways that you can market. I do my website myself. I've always done my website myself, my social media myself, all that sort of thing. There are services that you can use, but I generally say you should learn to do all your own marketing. It's not as if you might even enjoy it, it can be fun. And also, that's what readers want to engage with the author. They don't want to engage with a PR person or a marketing expert who's good at the techie side. They want to. So you need to be sort of upfront and central with your marketing. And I have done a bit of Amazon advertising, but I've got a bit fed up with that. So I don't do a lot of paid advertising. I do a few newsletters and that sort of thing. The paid newsletter services. But I'm lucky in that my background has been in sort of PR and that kind of thing. So my resistance has already been broken down. So I'm happy to do it. But I also like I think it's important to realise that marketing isn't just the big stuff. You can have great fun doing events at a local level. I was asked a few weeks ago to open a local church fete, and I thought, I've arrived, and it was lovely. I went to this little garden, beautiful country house, and it's like walking into a scene from a Poirot.
Wow.
It's just beautiful, and that's great fun. It's great fun, and I sold lots of books, and I got some talks on the back of that as well. So it's not all the stuff, It's scary. It's lots of fun too.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, just advice to writers, just have an open mind. Like we just said, you will be doing a module on marketing in the Simply Self-Published course with Jericho Writers. So that will, help give writers a good kind of head start on that side of things. And I think it's also something that's important for any writer, even if you're thinking of going on traditional route or, thinking of going hybrid. I think now it's more important than ever to be able to, I guess, market yourself, because a lot of the publishing houses don't do it for you that much anymore.
I'm very lucky in that Bold would do lots of marketing, but I would also say that trade published authors also need to have their own website and their own social media and take control of it. It really annoys me when I go and look up a trade published author and find they haven't got a website. What we need to know. Readers want to know, to engage with authors these days, and it's disappointing really when you can't.
Yeah, it's so true. It is a shame when that happens. But so get a website. It's the first action point for everyone watching who hasn't got one already. But this was wonderful. And thank you so much, Debbie, for making the time today. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and I know our audience has found this, really useful and insightful and interesting. So thank you so much again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, and thank you for all the interesting questions, folks, as well. Really good questions.
Thank you. I just love hearing about this. It's just wonderful to learn from you. So thank you. For everyone who's interested in joining the Simply Self-Published course with Debbie, I'll post a link to the webpage in the chat after we've finish the conversation, so it'll be there for you in case you are curious to learn more. If you're just joining us now, please do go back and watch the full conversation. You'll learn lots of interesting bits of information and advice if you are interested in self-publishing, or what the best route for you might be. So I guess thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you again so much, Debbie, and hopefully we can invite you back and have many more conversations with you.
That would be lovely.
That would be so nice. So thank you everyone. We hope we can see you again here soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.